Welcome back to Worldview. John Jackson, CEO of Jackson Research in Hong Kong, joined us a few weeks ago to discuss embassy safety and door locks when U.S. Republicans were prattling on with conspiracy theories about the Benghazi U.S. Embassy attack, while holding up nominations, and for years they've done nothing to improve magnetic door locks and alarms in secure facilities. He's back now to discuss a topic most of us think little about, but we probably should think more about. Simply, governments around the world are working very hard to develop sophisticated tools with which to spy on us via the internet. Now, if you thought Egypt and Syria just throwing a switch to shut down the internet during their uprisings was bad, well, you ain't seen nothing yet. John Jackson, welcome back to Worldview.
Thanks for having me.
When we first talked about this story offline, I asked if you could help me understand how governments use tools to spy on those using the internet. You came back to me with a detailed and terrifying outline that I'd like us to go through in as much detail as possible, but to put it into layman terms. So over the next couple of weeks, I'd like us to first discuss what the tools are and how they're used, and what the implications are for so-called civil liberties around the globe. Then next week, we'll look at ways in which people can protect their privacy at home and at work. So let's begin with two systems, Echelon and Carnivore. And in layman's terms, what are they and what do they do?
Okay, Echelon has been around for about 2 decades. The NSA and the CIA use that to monitor all communications in and out of the country. They use it to monitor satellites, telephones, fax, internet, anything you can imagine. And since it started nearly 20 years ago, it's sort of evolved to the point where, as the internet became more sophisticated, they needed more sophisticated tools, so they developed Carnivore. And basically, one of the things that Carnivore does is it searches for keywords. So let's say you're sending emails and documents over the internet. Carnivore will go through and search for keywords like that would indicate someone was trying to plan a terrorist attack or a crime or something like that. So basically it searches email for keywords. Just like you go on the internet and put keywords into Google, Carnivore searches all of your communications for keywords that alerts them to people of, shall we say, persons of interest. Okay.
Yeah. Now, this is something that should not surprise anybody. I mean, if you've watched any spy movie, you've probably seen versions of this everywhere. Now, we heard something about Stuxnet a while ago, and that caused some massive problems, I know, very publicly for the Iranian nuclear centrifuges. Give us an idea of what Stuxnet is and how that actually works.
Stuxnet is literally a Trojan horse. It's the same kind of Trojan horse that your antivirus program will warn you about, only this, Stuxnet and Flame, were the two most advanced Trojan horses ever developed in the history of the internet and the computer. They were authored by the United States and the Israelis, because the programming was so sophisticated that only a government would have the resources to do it, and finally figured out who was behind it. But basically, Stuxnet sits inside your computer and watches what you're doing and sends information back to people at a console, say, in Virginia or Colorado or someplace, in a military or intelligence center, and they process the data and take control of your machine. It's sort of like criminal malware that sits on your machine, and you turn it on and it connects to the internet and sends a little ping out to the criminal. He sees this, he immediately takes over your machine and has your machine doing things in the background that you don't know about.
I mean, an example of this would be when we ran a controversial article in UK Progressive just before the election. We were hit by a distributed denial of service attack. Now, my understanding is that could be a similar type thing, only what's happening is that it's using unsuspecting PCs everywhere as slaves to send out requests to the website to basically flood it and crash it. Did I get anything wrong there?
That sounds perfect.
Okay, good. 'Cause, I'm one of those people that have just enough information to be dangerous, I think. So it's I always want to double check with the real experts to make sure that I'm there. But this Stuxnet and Flame programs, now these can be used in very nefarious ways. I mean, these obviously started to spin the centrifuges to the point where they almost melted down, as well as could they also take out nuclear power plants, power grids, most of the infrastructure things that we talk about?
Anything.
Anything. Wow, that's really scary.
It's sort of like biological warfare. Let's suppose that we develop a virus that's so virulent that it would take out all the people in a continent. So then you deploy it, and what do you think is going to happen? It's going to get us too. It's the reason that chemical warfare and biological warfare are outlawed by the Geneva Convention, because it doesn't just get the other side, it gets everybody.
Yeah. Now, we saw some headlines. I'm going to divert from the outline just a little bit. We saw some headlines about China, making using technology to attack commercial and defense sites in the United States. And we had a conversation about that, where you said that it's kind of the pot calling the kettle black, because you say that in some instances the security efforts and the computer efforts of the United States are even greater than anything we see coming out of China.
That's correct. In fact, the Americans have the most advanced internet spy system in the world, and a lot of the hardware electronics is a controlled export. So, I mean, who are they to point their finger at somebody else who's maybe only engaged in self-defense?
Yeah, it's interesting because, I mean, how do you, at some point these chickens come home to roost? I mean, you create this technology, and it would seem that if you've created the technology, it would be fairly easy for someone else to also do the same or a variant of, would it not?
Well, basically, the people who caught Stuxnet and Flame were Russians, and they sell antivirus software all over the world. It's one of the most popular ones. And basically, you catch a virus in the wild, you take it into your laboratory on specialized equipment, dissect it, and then turn it around and use it against the people who sent it.
Wow. Now, we talked a little bit about, the possibility of identity theft, and you said that, indeed, we have to be very careful with email and even the use of popular social media such as Twitter and Facebook. You said that, the U.S. has the capability to store everything in Utah. So what privacy is there online? Do I have to carry a device, or, why do I have to carry a device that's going to look at every computer keystroke that I make or every website that I visit? I mean, where is privacy in all this?
There isn't any privacy. It's been known for a very long time that email is like a postcard. Anyone can read it. Anyone.
Wow. So
basically, the way the situation is in the United States right now, the original repository for data storage was on the East Coast, and as things evolve and the data becomes more massive, they had to create a new storage facility, which they constructed in Utah, which has the capacity to store all email, 100% of all your email forever, and all of your Facebook and all of your Twitter permanently.
For every person around the globe?
Anything they intercept.
Wow. That's a massive
message. Yeah, basically in the United States, all of the major emails, like Gmail, AOL, Yahoo, you name it, all of the public for free email is saved.
Well, John,
And
as
Twitter.
usual, you have absolutely scared me to death. I want to thank you. Now, next week, John and I are going to talk about famous victims of this type of fraud and what you can do to protect your data at home. John is invisible on the web, and he makes a very convincing case for staying one step ahead of those wanting to control your internet usage. Again, John Jackson is the head of Jackson Research in Hong Kong, and you can read more about this on his website, jrmagnetics.com. Thanks again, John.
Thank you.
Coming up next, we visit with the man who started this all. David Pakman joins us on Worldview with Denis Campbell.